All right, welcome into Ethan Skolnick's Starting Nine. This is typically a Tuesday, Wednesday thing, but obviously lots of stuff is going on this week on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel, so we're just adding this to it. You can follow me at 5 Reasons Sports and at Ethan J. Skolnick. I'll find the camera eventually. We're going to talk Dolphins today. If you want some Heat content, there's going to be plenty of it this week on the channel. Lots of streams from lots of shows like Bahama Boys, Feel the Heat, Full Court Press, Floor is Yours, and of course 5 on the Floor episodes we posted there as well. And there's a new one that's up on the podcast feeds. It'll be up on the YouTube channel later, where Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, and myself kind of went through all of the possibilities. It's a trade deadline primer, and we also looked at the move that Indiana made yesterday, sending Karis LeVert to Cleveland, and how that may or may not affect the Heat. But we're going to talk Dolphins today. We're going to have Alfredo Arteaga on here at roughly 9:15 if you're watching this live from 3 yards per carry, because Mike McDaniel has been hired. So we're not going to kind of look back at the process and all that. We're going to look forward. If you want to look back at the decision and the process, there's a great stream that went up live last night at about 6 o'clock. Nobody else does this, by the way. This is why you should be subscribed here. Radio stations are not really local anymore completely, so they're not going to cut in on Sunday after 6 o'clock to give you analysis of this. We did it here on the YouTube channel. And of course, again, you're not going to get much from the newspapers either until the next day. So make sure that you're checking that out on the streams, and make sure you're subscribing here. We are sponsored here by our friends over at Signs Broward, Fort Lauderdale. Okay. Lots of our sponsors are local. Why? Because we believe in that. We believe in building local businesses, and we believe in this business. 954-791-8685. That's 954-791-8685. Signs Broward, Fort Lauderdale. That's the website as well. SignsBrowardFortLauderdale.com. It's a one-stop shop for everything signs. They will design it for you. They will repair it if it needs repair. We know obviously in the South Florida weather, that can be a problem at times during the year. So they will do that for you as well. They've got a ton of different types of products there. And again, if you go on Las Olas, I mean, it's not just Las Olas, but if you go on Las Olas, a lot of the signs on Las Olas from your favorite restaurants and, eateries, I like using that word, they were designed by Signs Broward. Okay. There's a reason for it. All right. Because they do a great job. And again, they do it at a fair price. So reach out to Signs Broward, Fort Lauderdale. Make sure you mention 5 Reasons for a discount. Check out their Instagram page as well. And it's 954-791-8685. Signs Broward, Fort Lauderdale.com. All right. Mike McDaniel is the new Dolphin coach. And I tried to draw some parallels here a couple days before, and I've noticed some others in the media. Hello, Anthony. We appreciate it. Hello. Good morning, Gus. Lots of good mornings. Everybody's in a good mood. Look at this. Everybody's in a good mood. It's a good week, right? The Dolphins, well, let's start here. The Panthers are the top team in their entire league. Okay. The Heat are the top team in their conference, even though ESPN is focusing on 2 play-in teams and a non-playoff team. I mean, seriously, I'm not going to dwell on this today because this is a Dolphins thing, but Lakers, Nets, Knicks, can we give it a rest? Just give it a rest. Phoenix has won 3,000 consecutive games. John Morant is the likely MVP now, or a top 3 candidate. They don't talk about them either. Don't talk about the Heat. Don't talk about what the Bulls have done to stay up near the top. I mean, they're a big market team, Chicago, right? Just Lakers, Nets, Knicks. Lakers, Nets, Knicks. Stop watching ESPN for NBA coverage. That's all I got to say. Unless Sedano's on, I'm legally obligated to say that. All right. You got those 2 things, right? The Hurricanes went out and got the guy who won the award for best assistant coach in the nation. They stole him for a similar position. The Hurricanes, the Miami Hurricanes, we never have any money. The Miami Hurricanes just outspent Michigan to bring in a coordinator. And by the way, they went from 80th in recruiting rankings. Not that I always put much stock into this, because one of the best players in Canes history was a 3-star, Ed Reed. But they moved all the way up from 80th to 13th in 3 weeks with Cristobal. It's pretty impressive. And then, of course, I'm not going to mention the Marlins. Then, of course, the Dolphins have a coach. And it's the coach that most of us wanted them to get. Now, the Flores situation is still out there. The organization is still a bleep show in a whole bunch of different ways. I'm not going to let them off the hook. This is not a, look at the squirrel situation. No, there's still stuff going on there, okay? But They didn't lose this coach over it. That's a good thing. Okay. Because there were some concerns that, maybe he might not want to take this job. Right. I mean, after all, the team is under investigation. They could lose draft picks, possibly. I'm not saying they're going to, but there's an investigation. I mean, there was an investigation against the Heat for tampering, and they lost, a second-round pick that they don't care about because they'll just go find another Max Strus or Omer Yurtseven, whatever, undrafted. But the Dolphins, those draft picks matter because they're not very good at developing those types of players. So it is a little bit of a murky situation for a coach coming in here. But I drew some parallels here between the coach who's coming in and the coach who's going to go down as one of the top 3 coaches in Miami sports history, the guy who's coaching the All-Star game this week, Erik Spoelstra, right? Erik was 38 years old when he got that job. 38. A lot of people didn't understand it. I was at that press conference. What's Pat doing? Seriously, this guy, video coordinator guy? Yeah, he looks okay in a suit, but he looks like he's kind of wearing Pat's clothes. Now, I knew Erik because I had traveled with the team since 1996. Yes, I am that old. Wish me a happy birthday for Sunday. I had traveled with the team, and so I knew Erik personally and professionally before he got the job. But at the time, I mean, it was a bit of a risk. I mean, this is a guy with the kind of the credibility of Pat Riley, like putting the future of the franchise that he built here in South Florida, and he built it. Let's be honest. I love Glenn Rice and Steve Smith and Harold Miner, Brian Shaw, and all those guys. But no, I mean, Pat built this thing. Okay, he built it. And he was turning it over, not to Stan Van Gundy, which he had done in 2003, who we'd seen sort of as a lead assistant for a long period of time, right? And obviously his brother had been a lead assistant for Pat in New York and had become the head coach in New York and had gone to a finals. And so there was some credibility. We're going to get to that, T-Bone. That's going to be the point of this episode. I'm just long-winded. And so we had seen it with Van Gundy. So we kind of knew, like, yeah, he didn't look the part, okay? But, like, you kind of knew, like, Stan was from this lineage. His father was this great coach. Now, Eric's dad was an executive for Portland for years. But, again, not a lot of people knew about it. And I remember writing a column when Spoelstra got the job and saying, I think this is the right guy. There's no way to know, but he just carried himself in a certain way, okay? And some of this was what I knew about him personally, but some of it was the way I saw him conducting himself early on with the media and with his players. He carried himself in a certain way. Confident, but self-deprecating. Confident, but self-deprecating. To me, that is an important combination for a coach. Because if you're confident and you're not self-deprecating, if you can't make fun of yourself, if you can't see where your mistakes are, okay, and bring them to light, then your players don't believe in you because the confidence comes off as arrogance. Adam Gase. Okay? And to me, that's the big difference between Adam Gase and what I've seen of Mike McDaniel, or more importantly, what players are saying about Mike McDaniel. They don't want to lose this guy. Why? Okay? Why did they want to keep him so badly in San Francisco? It's because of the way he carries himself. You can tell. You just see it in his interactions with the media. He's the smartest guy in the room. It's pretty damn clear. But he doesn't necessarily hold that over everybody. That's the difference between him and Adam Gase, who believed he was the smartest guy, not just in the room, but in the universe. Couldn't do anything wrong, right? Players don't like that combination. Trust me, I've talked to enough of them, okay, over 26 years. They don't like it. Why? Because if it's not going to be ever that guy's fault, then it's your fault, right? When have you ever heard Erik Spoelstra call out a player at a press conference? The closest he's ever come has been some digs at Dion Waiters and Hassan Whiteside. And knowing those two situations, the way I know those situations, Erik could have done a lot worse. A lot worse. He bit his tongue a lot, particularly on Hassan, okay? Because I know what was going on behind the scenes. But he never makes it about the individual when things are going wrong. Look at the way he has supported Duncan Robinson this year. Look at the way he backs Bam when people are upset that Bam's not aggressive, not like the way he was the last game, which was great. Look at the way that he backed Tyler Hero last year. Erik Spoelstra's great gift, in my view, okay, is not the X's and O's stuff. And Erik once told me, I remember I think it was the second year. It might have been late in the first year of the Big Three. And I had a conversation with him on the court in Phoenix after a game. And we were talking about the challenge of coaching that team. And he said, well, here's the thing. 75% of coaching a team like this is managing personalities. It's not X's and O's. It's managing personalities, managing perception in the media, managing all of that. Eric understands that. And that's why he's become so successful in my view. Because Eric does something that other coaches, again, don't do. He praises individually and he criticizes collectively. Okay? So he will praise a guy individually for the progress that he's made. Look at the way Gabe worked on his shot and changed into a different kind of player. Look at the way Max has fit into the system. Omer's here in the gym all the time, right? Duncan, first guy in, last guy out. Jimmy Butler embodies an, Miami Heat player. Bam does everything that doesn't show up on the box score. He praises individually, right? Kyle Lowry, okay, QB1, all the rest of this. He makes the game so much easier for others. When things go badly, he doesn't say, well, Kyle with the 6 turnovers really effed that up for us. Does he ever say that? No, right? Fans think like that's what a coach should do, like because they're pissed at a player, right? When things don't go well, they're pissed. So they want the coach to be pissed at him publicly. Well, he could be pissed at him privately, but he doesn't embarrass him publicly. Eric never does that, ever. I'm getting Spoelstra vibes from McDaniel. Now, we have to see how it plays out, okay, obviously. And there's a big difference, which everybody pointed out when I mentioned that he's 38 and that Spo was 38 and that they both had, came from, great stock in terms of the people that they learned under and all the rest of this stuff. And they were self-deprecating and, all the rest. I get it. Okay. Eric, by the way, is never going to do some of the stuff that McDaniel does at press conferences. Okay. Although he's gotten looser over time. But people pointed out, rightly so, okay, that Eric Spoelstra still had Pat Riley in-house. So if there was ever any kind of an issue, Eric could go to Pat. And they quarreled at times, okay, a lot, all right? There was a time they both acknowledged it. They didn't talk for like a month. But Pat was always there as a resource. And Pat had his back during the worst of it in the Big Three era. Eric told me once he could have been fired 3 times, okay? He could have been fired the first time when they went out and got LeBron, okay? Because after all, LeBron was going to want to play for a more experienced coach. So that was 2010. He could have been fired at 9 and 8 when, Bumpgate and everything else that happened in Dallas and it was getting out in the media. That he certainly could have been fired there. Other organization might have done it. And then he could have been fired after the 2011 finals, which wasn't really his fault with the exception of playing Bibby over Chalmers. It was mostly Bron's fault, as we know. But he wasn't fired because Pat had his back. And because Pat had his back, Mickey had his back. And that's kind of the way things play out. Now, what we're going to talk to Alfredo about is Mike McDaniel doesn't have that luxury. I mean, he's from the Shanahan stock, but Shanahan is not here, right? He's not here. Chris Greer is here. Chris Greer should be on somewhat thin ice, right? 2021 strong draft aside. And that, to me, is where I want to take this today with Alfredo. So where do you go? All right. So Alfredo is brought to us by our friends over at Intense Nutrition. I've got the bottles right here. Using it. Actually using it. See, it's getting lighter. It's getting lighter every time I come on here. You want to go to Intense Nutrition, get your own stack. Okay. It's in Coral Springs, Intense Nutrition. Of course, their guy, Mike Thompson, a big follower of 3 yards per carry, by the way. And so shout out there to Mike if you're watching. Intense Nutrition is in Coral Springs. It's off of University Drive. They will give you everything in the store for 20% off with the exception of protein. So like these are 20% off. Your pre-workout, your post-workout, you can call them at 954-775-0257. It's 954-775-0257. And they've got the weight loss stack in there also, okay? So if you want to lose 10 to 15 pounds in a couple of weeks, go to them. Here's the big difference. I tell everybody this. Yes, they have that 3-letter chain on every corner. They're going to sell you whatever it is that corporate tells them to sell you, okay? They've got quotas, all right? That's how they're going to do this. Intense Nutrition doesn't do that. You're going to walk in, and they're going to say, what are you looking to do? What are you looking to do? And they will sell you the best product that fits for that. Also, they got ties to local gyms as well. So follow them on Facebook. Might want to stay away from Facebook these days. Follow him on Instagram at Intense Nutrition, or give him a call at 954-775-0257. Visit him up in Coral Springs. And again, mention 5 Reasons, get 20% off everything but protein in the store. All right, Alfredo, let's get to it. You're a Heat fan as well, all right? And we saw in 2008 that Eric Spoelstra came in, and there were questions. I mean, nobody remembers them now, but there were serious questions. I mean, you were turning over, a franchise that Pat Riley had led to a championship just 2 years earlier. Okay, now had fallen on hard times, different than the Dolphins' hard times, but 15 and 67. They still had Dwayne Wade on the roster, but they had drafted Beasley and Chalmers. You didn't know how that was going to work out. And Pat was like, I'm done. I'm going to turn it over to this guy who kind of looks a little bit like I used to look back in the day. But he kind of looks like he's wearing my clothes. He's 38 years old. He's been hanging out in the video room. You guys have all seen him, but you never really talked to him that much. I mean, unless you were on the road, in which case you did run into Eric from time to time. And I remember skepticism about that. There's some skepticism now about some similar things. Hasn't been a head coach in the NFL. He's a little different in terms of his personality. He's very different from Spoelstra's, obviously, but also there was the question about Eric, like, would NBA players listen to him? And I'm hearing that about Mike McDaniel as well. Before we get into what a staff's going to look like, why do you think these guys will listen to him?
Well, I think because he's going to speak to them on their level, and it's not unlike what Adam Gase said once that I thought was profound when he first got here. When Adam Gase, if you remember that first year, like, he was kind of a dream to cover, right? Like, young, fresh, right? And then slowly he devolved for whatever reason. But he said something on one of his first press conferences that I think was actually profound. He said that his relationship with a player should be about him trying to get that player paid and that player trying to keep him employed. That's what the relationship should be about. And I think that's a great dichotomy, right? Like, that's a great combination to have. And I do remember about Spoelstra, and there's one major difference in this case. Because I remember when Spoelstra got hired, everybody kept asking me, like I'm supposed to be some type of expert because I follow the team so closely. Who is this guy? And I'm like, well, Pat Riley made him the chief assistant in 2006 when they won the title. And now he's making him the head coach. So if Pat Riley likes him, he has to be good, right? There's none of that here. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that this is Chris Greer's guy, and this is Chris Greer's last stand. Okay, so yeah, he is. Your monologue at the beginning of the show is absolutely right. It's going to be Chris Greer's last stand. He is on thin ice. He has to produce. Like, the team has to go forward from here. There is no honeymoon period. This is a 10-6, 9-18. Like, what's the baseline? 10 wins and the playoffs is probably the baseline. Like, that's what has to be achieved for you to, fist pump at the end of the season and say, hey, we're getting better. But other than that, yeah, that's it.
So let's take a look at where McDaniel goes now, because we know the press conference, he's going to win everybody over and he's going to be entertaining. I mean, Dolphin coaches, even the most dry, always win the press conference. That we've been through so many press conferences. I don't know about Philbin's necessarily, no. but many of the others. Dan Campbell certainly won the initial press conference. There's no question about that. Tony Sparano won the first press conference because Bill Parcells was kind of behind the whole thing. Saban won the press conference because there was no way he wasn't going to. Jimmy Johnson, I think, all-time South Florida winning the press conference. I shouldn't say probably Pat being introduced on a boat by Mickey was probably first, I would say. But I think probably the Jimmy one was second. But all this winning of the press conferences hasn't led anywhere, right? So, I mean, they had a press conference where they introduced Dan Marino as president of football operations, and that didn't work out very well.
Yeah, Dan Marino went to the Senior Bowl, said, you know what? I think we should draft Phillip Rivers. You know what? I want to quit.
I was with him. We're gonna go off on a tangent here, but I was at that Senior Bowl when Dan was there. That was 2004 after they made
he nailed the evaluation, no?
He nailed a bunch of evaluations, but he also sat there. I remember it was a really rainy day in Mobile. Okay. You never want to be in Mobile for a rainy day. All right. And so it's a rainy day in Mobile, and they have those metal benches. And I'm watching Dan while he's watching these offensive linemen from like Texas, like UTEP. Okay. And he looks bored out of his freaking mind. And I always tell this story because Spielman told me basically. But like as they were leaving, the Senior Bowl, Dad goes to Rick because everybody stays at the same hotel in Mobile. Okay, so we're there with the media's there with the coaches, with the executives, with everybody. Everybody's sitting in the lobby drinking, after the practices. And I remember Rick saying to me, "Well, we're leaving tomorrow." And I said, "Okay." And he says, "Yeah." He says, "Dan asked if we're getting limos to the airport." He's like, "I told Dad, like, we're on a football operations budget." Okay. That was it. We never heard from Dan again in that position. That was done. You're sitting there watching offensive linemen from UTEP from a bench. But yeah, I mean, I think that we've seen consistently that they win the press conference and there's a vision that's displayed. What's a little bit different this time is that it's being done under a cloud, Alfredo. So like usually like this would be the big rollout, fresh start, Steve Ross hyping his new candidate and all the rest of this. But it's at the same time as the owner is being accused basically of throwing games or telling his coach to throw games. And it's under the auspices right now of a racial discrimination suit that maybe they're not the primary target, the Dolphins, but they're one of the targets here. And I don't know, just that saying that Mike McDaniel is biracial. I mean, you're not going to say that at a press conference. So it's a weird dynamic, isn't it? Like, how do the Dolphins? I do want to get to the staff here before you go, but like, how do the Dolphins manage that?
You manage it by not putting Stephen Ross up there. Okay, it's you put Chris Greer up there, you put Reggie McKenzie, which seems like, I guess I'll break a little news here. It looks like Reggie McKenzie is going to stay with the Dolphins. You put Marvin Allen up there. You put the brain trust. You put the people that are actually going to be responsible for this team either winning or losing going forward, and have them conduct the whole press conference, because it seems like Stephen Ross is kind of a lightning rod as of late for anything that's gone wrong with this team. So just stick to the background. He is involved in a lawsuit, right? So it would behoove him to not say too much at a press conference. And that the first, maybe not the first question, because the first question should be about Mike McDaniel, I would hope. Mm-hmm. But the third question is going to be, hey, your ex-coach sued you, right? What do you think, Stephen Ross, about this and that? Can you please defend yourself here in this forum? And then the fourth question is going to be to Mike McDaniel. Hey, the guy that was here before you sued your boss. What do you think? So, yeah, just don't show. It's the easiest thing, right?
Well, but he doesn't always
listen. Chris Greer's been doing it for years, and it works for him, right?
Well, it hasn't really worked for him. I mean, it's worked for him to keep his job. I don't know that it's worked for him in terms of guiding the organization. But look, this is a guy, as I've said before, who doesn't seem to know when to stay out of his own way at times. Like, we go back to Gator Day when he was explicitly told, do not get photo. First thing, he was explicitly told, don't do Gator Day. Okay. They did it anyway at the stadium with Tim Tebow coming into town. But he was also explicitly told, don't get photographed with Urban Meyer. Don't. Okay. I know this for a fact. The week where he was told, do not get photographed with Urban Meyer because you're going to make your current coach, Tony Sperano, look bad. And literally the splash photo on the Sun Sentinel front, because it was above my column, was a photo of Urban Meyer standing closely and joking around with Steve Ross. So, I mean, he doesn't typically take this kind of advice. I don't know if it's ignorance or if it's I'm an 81-year-old billionaire and I don't give a bleep what you think, but it's probably a combination of both. All right, let's pivot to the staff here, because the news came out last night, and I know CK mentioned this and others. I mean, this is not news. We know this. Vic Fangio is represented by the same agent as Mike McDaniel. Now, that agent represents a lot of coaches, okay? So that not necessarily, I mean, that tends to be the way. I mean, Sexton represents like 3/4 of the prominent coaches in college football, okay? So that just happens. But also, I mean, it does raise a question here. I mean, Mike McDaniel's probably going to need a trusted hand who's been a head coach with him, right? That's kind of what they wanted to do with Flores and Caldwell, but then, of course, Caldwell had some issues and wasn't there with Flores. So I will ask, does that to you, if you can get Vic Fangio, do you do that, even though maybe Josh Boyer is competent as defensive coordinator, And you do that because you want to have somebody who obviously has run a bunch of different types of defenses, but even more than that, knows what it's like to kind of be in that lead chair.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember what Charlie Weiss once said was the reason why the Patriots actually won and why he was going to win in Notre Dame, which is complete BS. Which was, he says, they have a distinct schematic advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was kind of BS. But this, what would you call this? Vic Fangio is highly respected as the best defensive coach, best defensive coordinator in football. And Mike McDaniel's the hot coordinator, right? So it seems like it's a marriage made in heaven. If they do fire Nate Boyer, I suspect he'll have a job within 5 minutes.
Right.
Like, he's a top coach. A lot of fans have asked me on the 3 yards per carry account and have, asked the podcast, why wouldn't you just fire these guys? If your coach wants to come in and it's like, okay, if you have that much bloodlust, you just want to fire even the good coaches, then okay, go ahead, knock yourself out. But Austin Clark, Gerald Alexander, Charles Burks, Josh Boyer, these are like top coaches. Why wouldn't you want to keep these guys, right? And you also get a little continuity with the units that were good on the team. But Vic Fangio, absolutely, it would be a home run hire if they could pull that off. I don't know why Vic Fangio would want to do that. He's a little older.
But we saw
just
Wade
had a head
Phillips
coach
do that.
job.
Yeah, but we saw Wade Phillips do this many times, Alfredo. Like, I mean, Wade, also an elite defensive coordinator who struggled at times as a head coach. He had some success, but not enough. Although now it appears in Dallas, nobody has any success ultimately as a head coach. And so maybe Wade wasn't so bad there, but he kept taking defensive coordinator jobs well into his 60s, right? So, I mean, I guess it wouldn't stun me. I think the other advantage is, like, you talk about guys like Gerald Alexander, they know the personalities of the players. I think that will matter for a new coach. I feel like a coach who's coming in here who doesn't know any of these guys wants to be able to ask, one of the position coaches, okay, how do I get to Xavier Howard? Particularly if you're an offensive coach, right? Because now they're flipping the script on this. What makes this guy tick? How did you guys get the most out of Jalen Phillips last year in the second half of the season? Like, I feel like that's meaningful. I mean, we've talked about the players are there. Okay. I mean, I would think that's the other perk. I think a defensive coordinator would want to coach this defense. I mean, there's, as you've talked about, there's significant talent there. The talent problem is on the offense. So I do feel like that will be beneficial to it. All right, let's close here. Before we do, want to mention one more sponsor, our friends PrizePicks.com. Use that code 5 FIVE. This is Super Bowl week. They've got different prop promos every single day. Okay, plus you can pair it with the NBA too. The Heat play tonight. They're playing against Washington. A lot of rumors about Washington potentially making a trade maybe for Sabonis. It might be an interesting night tonight if any of that materializes. Use the code 5 FIVE. That's the code 5 FIVE. Get your initial deposit matched over at PrizePicks.com. It is legal in Florida. It is legal in New York. I get asked those two questions all the time. We have a lot of viewers from New York, so it's legal.
And their Super Bowl prop spread is vast. I don't know if you've been on there.
Everything is.
Yeah, you could plunge to your heart's desire on Sunday. You could lose or win millions of dollars if you want to.
Well, and here's the thing too: you can play 2, 3, 4, or 5 players, and you put down $100. You don't have to play it all at once, but they'll match it. So put down $100 and play it the whole week. Okay, just
I'm on there. I play all the time on PrizePicks. I like their interface. I like what they do.
Yeah, and they are the official sponsor of ours, and we kept them on for a reason. All right, let's get to the final question here. You mentioned the baseline. Okay, now I asked Hussam this question when he was on, and I'll ask all of you this question: why are we not going to be here again in 3 years?
We're not going to be here again in 3 years because Mike McDaniel has been handed kind of a ready-made roster, ready-made in the sense that he can win, and he'll win enough where in 3 years, maybe they don't have a Super Bowl. Maybe they do. But if they don't have a Super Bowl, they will have enough success where he will get another 3 years past those 3 years. So maybe we're back here in 6 years. And Kellen Moore is the quarterback. It's the new head coach.
There'll be a new guy. People thought that Spoelstra wasn't going to last 3 years, and we are in year, what is this? 14, I think, something along
16,
those lines.
16, is it?
Well, no, 08. My math is bad.
Yeah, it's 14.
08, yeah, 14. Yeah. So we're in year 14.
But he's been with the team since 2003, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that here's the thing about Eric that bothers me is he's actually 3 years older than me, and I tend to think I look a little young for my age. I don't know what the hell he's doing, man. It's not fair. I mean, him and George Sedano are the two people I know who do not age. It's total insanity.
Yeah,
George
especially when you watch some NBA coaches, like I always forget his name, but he's in Indiana right now. Rick Carlisle. He's been deteriorating for about 10 years.
Well,
eventually he's just going to be dust on the
10 years. I think he deteriorated 10 years this season, actually. Trying to watch Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis play together. I think he deteriorated a lot, but anyway, we're all deteriorating in our own ways. All right, Alfredo, we appreciate it. The godfather of 5 Reasons Sports Dolphins coverage. Follow 3 yards per carry. We're gonna try to get some of those up here on the actual YouTube channel. Okay, we got to get Alejandro to take care of that for you guys. All right, so check us out all week long. Tons of NBA trade coverage, tons of it. The Heat may not make a trade, doesn't mean we're not going to talk about it. All right, so check us out. Subscribe here on the channel. PrizePicks.com, IntenseNutrition.com, and if you need a sign done for your business, reach out to Broward Signs, Fort Lauderdale. Have a good day, everybody.